This meeting to order. The meeting will be video recorded and broadcast over local access channel 18 and through the town website, or channel 8, sorry, old habits. And through the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov. So we start first with select board and public information. Select board first. Jerry?
Yes, I'd like to announce that the Climate Action Committee has a survey that's now up, and you can get to it on the website. It's right on the front page. This will help the Climate Action Committee think about what type of programs, what they want to do with information from the citizens. So I urge you all to take it, go to the website, click on it, take it. It doesn't take too long. I've done it, and it takes about 5-10 minutes to finish. So please do that. Thanks.
Thanks, Jerry. Anyone else? All right, anyone from the public have anything that's not on the agenda that they'd like to discuss? Kevin, if you come up to a microphone.
Either of these? And
Yep.
sit.
Right.
Yeah.
How's that for volume and?
Yeah, just state your name and,
Right, my name's Kevin Eastman. I'm an abutter to the elementary school, and upon receiving the, this information packet on page 80, the title is Strategic Plan Accomplishments in 2023. So I'm very concerned about a vegetative buffer and clear cut that was done on town property and the abutting Chipman Street. And I've had, I'd say, above all, huge frustration with the lack of transparency. And even before the project happened, as an abutter, I approached a representative of the school and was told, Kevin, this has already been approved, you can't stop it. That alone, that interaction was pretty troubling, especially with a town employee that there's been a long dialogue with. There's been conflict that has been successfully resolved since the fall of 1999. So I think there are a lot of facts to be shared on this topic, and the abutters especially were told ahead of time that they, again, could not stop it, could not block it. We were not given notice. And I would like to know where even what I looked at as very minor mitigation offered by the school that still hasn't been completed. And I have not heard any notification from them since then. So we've passed a calendar year. That's why I'm here.
Okay.
And I'm looking for guidance, assistance, and at this point, alliance. One neighbor immediately, as soon as the clearing started, which took 3 days, they summed it up with call 3 media outlets and call 3 local environmental groups. And I said, I'd like to start with the source. Had to wait about a week for the principal to be back at the school. And I thought, okay, this is going to be big. He's going to see what happens. After that, then went to the town, also did a public records search in, I think, 4 or 5 different ones. No notice of how and when and by who this was approved or funded by. So I could keep going for a long time, but I don't have to. That's.
yeah, I know you, well, just one thing, I know you did reference the clear cutting bylaw. That wasn't even approved then.
Okay.
So this was just approved
I
last
look at
year.
2023 accomplishments.
Yeah,
And in that, I just say, how do we classify this?
yeah.
Again, I don't want to bring facts. I don't want, I do want thorough discussions about the facts.
Maybe a better explanation.
Again, I'm looking at a page that says 2023 Town Strategic Plan Accomplishments, and I think we as a town, I know as an abutter, I failed. I had the opportunity to stand and stop what was happening. I didn't. I let it proceed, and that I regret. Other than that, I think there have to be a lot of shared regrets, because I don't think that we should be listing an accomplishment like that when, as a town, we can't point at ourselves and what we're doing. So, thank you.
All right, thanks, Kevin. All right, anyone else?
Yeah, I'm not,
All right, we'll move on. Pre-town meeting. So I'll let moderator start. Kind of how we're going to do this, he's going to go over procedures and rules. And then we'll start going through the articles. If people have, questions. This isn't the time for debate because that'll be at town meeting in, a week and a half or so. Coming up.
Good.
Thank you, Scott.
Yep. Well, I'd like to welcome everybody here tonight. And I know a lot of work has gone in to get us to where we are tonight through a variety of committees and town employees and the select board. And so I think just wanted to kind of give everybody a few pieces of house cleaning. If you haven't gotten your warrant, you should be getting it in the mail in the next couple of days. They have been mailed. There are some copies up next to Suzanne on that table if you're looking to get one tonight. So I just wanted to let everyone know that. We're having our final preparation meeting this coming Wednesday with police, fire, town officials, so we get a lay of the land at the high school. Obviously, it's a construction project going on. It's a large construction project, and we have to think about safety of the people attending and the town employees, so on and so forth. So a lot will go into that, and there'll be probably some, not a code red thing that will go out from the town, but it'll be one of those things where your phone rings and everybody gets one at the same time. So just keep it, middle of next week, you should be getting that. So we'll look forward to that. Obviously, it's on May 4th, 10 a.m. in the morning. And so I also wanted to, I don't know if everybody can see it, but there's a couple of town employees over here, police chief's here, Paul Lag's behind me, and I apologize for the people that I can't see here. There's nothing I can do about this, so I don't want you to feel like you're being left out. So I just wanted to kind of welcome everybody. We do this every year. It's a time-honored tradition to have our town meeting, and I don't know when we started doing the pre-town meeting, but since the 4 or 5 years that I've been the moderator, we've done it, a couple of weeks before. So without, too much more to get onto that, but we'd go through it. And as I said, tonight's sort of about procedures and questions, and if somebody has a warrant article that they put on, maybe what was their theory, why they were doing it, but not necessarily too much of a debate about the merits of an article, more of a procedural and understanding, and kind of get us a look-see how a week from Saturday will go. So if anybody has any general questions, I can take those, or we can kind of just start going through. A lot of smiling faces out there. If there's people from home, and Kayla and Rich are going to help me if there's anybody from home that has a question. So just kind of starting, you'll see at the beginning of it's your warrant, you will see the articles that will be on the ballot, which is a week and a half after town meeting. There will be a vote that we will be voting for, and there's some articles there. There's a total of 3 articles that are going to be. One goes back a couple years, which is the culmination of our charter review. The charter review, every 10 years per our charter, there's a review. Some changes were made. Those were voted on by the body of the town of Eastham, voted in favor of it. Then it goes back to the legislature for final stamping, and so it will be on the ballot one more time. So you might look at this stuff and say, oh, we've seen this before, and yeah, yes, you have seen it a few times. So that's kind of at the beginning of your warrant. Then we kind of moving along, there's a kind of an annual report of the select board. And they basically, if you're new to town, and this is kind of the way our government works, is the select board kind of overviews the policies and the budgetary process through their town manager, which is Jackie Beebe up front, and she's excited to talk tonight, so we'll make sure we get her included. And so that's kind of how, and then the different committees around town, put together budgets and proposals and things, and that's sort of how it all kind of flows into the warrant. So at the beginning, we have a select board, report of the select board, and then followed by the report of the select board is a report of the finance committee. And so they've kind of both are kind of, the select board sort of in some ways has put the warrant forward and the articles forward, and then the finance committee is a separate wing of government, has kind of gone through it and given their opinions and votes on the variety of articles that are within the warrant. So that's kind of the beginning of that. So we'll kind of-
Just to add to that,
Yeah.
they do a lot of the heavy lifting on the,
They do on the budget.
Rich working with them on the
Yes.
budget. We just kind of get their recommendations and their
Yeah, their
feedback,
feeling on
which is
things, yeah,
awesome.
absolutely.
very valuable to us.
And then, so as you'll see here on page 8, kind of says, and for the rest of the warrants, there's some, some guidelines to kind of help you work through things, if you had any questions. And then, sort of on page 9 is sort of our table of contents of the warrant. And you can kind of see through there the order in which we'll be addressing the items on Saturday. Some of them are procedural that are there every year, like greenhouse and, amortization of, so there's a couple little things like that. And so those will be pretty quick votes. And then on, starting on 2, we'll get into kind of the meat of the order, so to speak. And we do have the police chief here, so I feel like you might want to say something, or without being too political or whatever. Do you want to? You have an article in front of us, so, and you're here, so I'm trusting.
When we get there.
All right, okay, all right, and no, just making sure you're still with us. All right, and so we have, Article 1. I don't know if anybody has any specific questions on Article 1. It's kind of a procedural.
We'll do that after, yeah.
Okay. And then Article
I don't see
2A is the general fund operating budget. And as been in the past, it's a line item where you can kind of see proposed, prior year, increase, decrease, overall effect. And it's kind of been laid out in that order. And what we've done in the past, prior moderators have kind of, rather than going through the whole thing, is to try to identify sections where people might have questions. I think that works pretty well. And Jackie, you're happy with that?
Yes,
Just
yeah, that's great.
continuation of that? So that's sort of Article 2A. Article 2B is a school committee regional funding formula sort of question.
No, we did one.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
I
Okay.
think you kind of looked around.
Article 2C is a water enterprise fund operating budget. Okay. And sort of Article 2D, I think is a fine time to police chief, just to kind of, without trying to.
He was duly warned that he'd have to get up, so.
Thank you. I just have a couple of quick, brief comments. I've given multiple presentations on this to this point, so I won't take a lot of your time, but the police department patrol staff has not grown in size since 1995. Many aspects of police work have changed dramatically in the nearly 3 decades since 1995. Incident investigation and documentation, collaboration with outside agencies, and mandatory training requirements are just a few areas that take a lot of time for each officer, much more than they did back then. Due to the increased workloads on each shift, the shifts have become understaffed to handle multiple emergency calls that could be happening simultaneously, and to do so in a safe manner. Understaffed shifts can also begin to cause fatigue and morale issues with employees, which can lead to poor decision-making and burnout. Additional staff is also needed to ensure that the shift supervisors, typically sergeants on our department, can continue to have the time and freedom to supervise each shift and not need to act as patrol officers as they frequently do now. Proper supervision is incredibly important to a police department that demands a top level of police work, as our department does. The Eastham Police Department will continue to meet all of the challenges that are thrown at us. However, without a patrol staff increase in nearly 30 years, the time has come to add additional staffing. The time has come to add additional staffing, which is needed so that we can continue to provide the high level and professional level of police services that the Eastham community demands and deserves. I ask you to please vote yes on this article and invest in your police department's future. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
Okay. So that is that article.
We have a question.
Okay, great.
Moderator.
Yes.
Yes.
Come to the microphone.
Yeah, absolutely, ask a question, as long as we're not getting into you know, too much of a debate situation. But yeah, questions is a fine time.
But come on
Please
down.
To the
Yeah.
microphone, yeah.
Mike, thank you.
Just take his jacket.
Good evening. My name's Rich Goslin, 15 Fallon Road in Eastham. And I just had some general questions regarding, you know, this particular one. And, you know, want to start off with, you know, thank you to the public safety and what the police and the fire department do. But I did want to, as a concerned citizen, understand how we got to this point. And I guess my questions are, and I'll kind of summarize them as, you know, how do you determine the correct policing level, you know, for a town? You know, I know there's mention of population and time and these things, but, you know, what is the real criteria that could be used in order to determine the correct staffing level of that? You mentioned, you know, some frustrations with the staff and that, you know, they're overworking, but has there been any kind of a reduction in the quality or the safety that Eastham has experienced as a result of that? And I think that's in my opinion, a more valid argument rather than just we haven't increased the staffing in 15, 30 years, whatever that happens to be. And then the last, well, two more questions, was just that there's a mention of overtime, and I was actually shocked at how much overtime the police and the fire department both incurred. Over $500,000 for the police, and again, over $500,000 even more for the fire department. I mean, that's over $1 million of overtime. So understanding how that's approved, reviewed, you know, is it on a case-by-case basis, all that. And then I guess finally some metrics in terms of how we compare with the other towns, Orleans, Truro, Wellfleet, in terms of, again, that staffing type of requirement. That's it.
Yeah, you
So-
probably have,
Yeah, great, thanks for your questions. Adam, why don't you see if you can kind of touch on those real quickly? And
So a lot of those are kind of interwound together. You may have to give some of them back to me so I can remember them. But there's a lot that goes into determining staffing levels. There's some numbers you can look at, population increase over those years, call volume increase over those years. Call volume is a little bit difficult to look at because we do a lot better job now of documenting the calls, every call that we're doing. Back in 1995, we may pull a case number for only serious type crimes or serious incidents, whereas now our officers are pulling numbers for, you know, community contacts, community policing events. So it's kind of apples and oranges. It's a little hard to compare directly. We did spend a lot of money on overtime this year, and one of the reasons for that is interwoven into this request. We had a time this fall between August and in January sometime where we were down 3 officers in our department. We had a retirement, a resignation, and an officer injured on duty. So for 6 months, we were short 3 police officers. How do you fill those holes? With overtime. That also creates fatigue, morale issues, burnout. So it kind of all rolls together. If we can get to a higher staffing level, we'll be more equipped to absorb those as they come in and then work our way back to where we should be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like it was also an exception this year with the 3 at once, so there could be other ones, yeah.
The 3 is an extreme, however, it's not unusual for us to have a retirement or an officer leave to go to another department or to one extended illness, and when you're short to begin with, even losing 1 officer can hurt.
The other question was regarding staffing levels in comparison to some of the other towns near us.
So the Orleans Police Department, slightly larger population than us, but not
Yeah.
by
like by 700.
Yeah, they have 23 full-time police officers on staff. We have 17. And the Wellfleet Police Department, which the population is significantly lower than ours, they have 18, and we have 17.
Okay.
So we've fallen behind our neighbors.
Okay, and we talked about the overtime piece. Do you believe it's affecting the quality of the services that you're providing, this reduction in force and/or safety to the town?
So I always trust in our officers that they're going to respond to every call as professionally and safely as they can. When they need to call help from another town, they do. There's never a guarantee that that help is going to be available. So I don't know that it's affected the quality. I hope it hasn't. My fear is that it could. That, you know, if we have, and I'm always careful how I word this, but the number of officers we have working on a shift, to me, is not adequate. If we have one emergency call that comes in, we can handle that. If we have a second one that comes in at the same time, we will handle it. Are we doing it as professionally and as safely as we possibly could? The answer is probably no. So we're trying to get to that level where we could handle multiple emergencies at one time, which frequently happen, especially during our busy months, which used to be July and August. Now it seems to be, you know, spreading in either direction of that.
Yeah. So are there potentially other sources of funding, you know, for, to fill this gap? And I guess I'm thinking of, would we expect to see that the overtime would pretty much be reduced significantly, almost to closer to zero, because that's an amount of money if you had the extra officers? Would the consideration be given to part-time? I'm always concerned when you add full-time employees to any company, or in this case to the staffing of the municipality, is that, you know, those are long-term things. You got benefits, you got salary, you've got all other things, and pensions included on that. Would part-time be an option? I see you do have some, I don't know what a reserve officer is, but.
So when I started here as a reserve officer in 1997, I stood out on Route 6 in front of the post office and directed traffic. And my training, honestly, compared to what the officers are required to have now, was nothing.
Totally different. Yeah.
And really a risk, you know. I mean, you're being asked to do a job that you haven't been trained adequately to do. We've been concerned about that over the years, but through police reform in the state of Massachusetts, there's now a certification required to be a police officer. Doesn't mean it matter if you're part-time, doesn't matter if you're full-time. It's certified to be a police officer. So the days of hiring part-time officers are really gone, because if you could get a part-time officer and train them to be a full police officer but act at a part-time capacity, they're likely going to take a full-time job at the first department that will accept them. We do have one officer who happens to be, I think he's an assistant principal at a school out in Western Mass. He comes here in the summer. He is certified, and he does work for us in the summer just
Per
to
diem
supplement.
type of a thing, or?
We bring him on 40 hours a week in the summer to supplement. But to find additional on top of that on a part-time basis would be next to impossible.
Okay. And you're saying that even with the 2 additional, that's still not going to be adequate? You're looking for 4?
The idea is to add 1 additional officer to every shift. So, and again, I want to be careful about talking how many officers we have working at once for security reasons in town, but what we have now, to me, is not adequate. I'd like to bring that up by 1 officer, and that would give us, you know, a fighting chance to handle 2 emergencies at the same time. And that was the original idea with the 4 officers. That would do that for most of the year, maybe not our very quiet months.
Yeah. I think the concern is that with staffing, if you can overstaff, and then you're paying for people that aren't being fully utilized. And again, if there's productivity opportunities, you know, to make it easier to do that paperwork, you know, electronics, those types of things, you know, that would be an option also. And that you can't always staff for your highest level. You really do have to go to the majority of the situations and address the exceptions as they are.
What I would say to that is we could swell to 35,000 during the summer months, and even with an additional 2 or 4 officers, we're not looking at that number to staff up to 35,000. We're more down at the 58 to 6,000 residents we have, and then we just work harder in the summer. People come in as needed and cover shifts.
Very good. Thank you for your responses. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your questions.
And Mr. Chair, can I just?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Jamie?
Yeah, and I also advocate for anybody before town meeting. There was a great presentation done by Chief Bohannon in one of our select board meetings. And I would definitely encourage folks to watch that before town meeting. I don't remember the date.
It was in February, I want to say.
It was in February?
We can
Okay.
get the date.
Yeah, and that presentation, I think, even kind of addressed almost all of the questions that the chief just answered, too. So I think it's helpful for folks to get some of that information ahead of time as well, so.
Yeah, I just wasn't aware of that meeting.
Oh, yeah, no, that's, I mean, that's
No,
what
that's
this is
fine.
for. This is what this is for, absolutely, and it's our chance to remind people that that's out there, because not everybody keeps up with meetings quite like we do, so, and that's understandable, yeah.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes.
if I could just add, along the lines of what Jamie just mentioned, this whole budget process is pretty well documented with, and if anyone is interested in following along, each of the departments go in front of the Finance Committee in late January through mid-March, maybe late March this year. All those meetings are recorded, and you could see which department. So if you're interested in the police department, you could look up the police department going in front of the Finance Committee, or the DPW, or whatever department you're interested in. But every department goes and discusses their budget with the Finance Committee. There is a more detailed budget book than what appears on this warrant on the town website for the operating budget, and a separate book for the capital budget that has a higher level of detail on all these things. And the questions that were just asked were great questions, and I do want to assure everybody that before we even prepare budget books and go in front of finance committees, Jackie and I meet with department heads and review their budget requests. And all those questions that you asked are the same types of questions that we consider before we even bother to propose putting something forward. So, it is quite a process, and I think we're pretty detailed. And so that's why, Chief Bohannon's ready to answer with pretty good responses, I think, to questions, because we've done this prep work. So by all means, if there are any questions or interest in any of the details of these budgets, please let us know so that we can address them and assure you that we've thought of these things.
Thanks, Rich.
Oh, February.
So the February 26th was the date that the police chief did a presentation at the select board meeting.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
I don't know if Adam touched on this. I don't think you did, Chief, but both on the police and fire side, first of all, we do not staff for summer, obviously, and we can't just staff for the few people we might have in January. We have to have a force that's robust enough to get us through the seasons and to handle that. And I think Adam explained that well. But both on the police and fire side, we also have increased regulations. And over the years that I've been doing this, I've seen those regulations and those demands on both police and fire in terms of training, in terms of expertise. On the fire side, one of the overtime issues is that we have a long distance to Cape Cod Hospital. And so when we send out an ambulance, 3 people are in that ambulance, 3 paid staff. And they have different levels of training, because you may be having a heart attack and you need one level, or you may have fallen out of bed and were unconscious for a minute but are alert and need another level. So I think there are just many issues involved in that, but we have to keep a certain amount of staff on duty for those calls. And when 3 of them leave, they leave for a few hours if they have to go to Cape Cod Hospital and back in July. And then the third thing is, so that's why the overtime costs are, because we're backfilling immediately upon people leaving, we're calling new people in, and we cannot predict when that's going to happen or not happen. So it just happens when we get below a certain number, they call in more, especially on the fire side. Adam doesn't have that luxury because we don't have enough police officers to do that. And then the final thing is, I was at a town meeting in Wellfleet we were asking Wellfleet for some money for our housing project, Nauset Green. I think it was in 2016, when the chief of police had to stand up at town meeting and say to his residents, I'm sorry to say this, but there are times when I only have 1 officer on duty driving around the town, and that's not safe. It's not safe for them, it's not safe for you, and I really need this extra additional staff. And I never, ever want to put our staff in that position, ever. It's not safe for them, it's not safe for us. And I have put this off, this adding of officers off for, I think 5 years. I think 5 years, we've been saying, this year isn't the right year, Adam, we have to wait. And we can't put it off anymore, not after this past summer where we really did have to force overtime, and that's never good. So please know that we have done our due diligence and that we're recommending this because we really believe it's not only the best path, but I think in this case, the only path.
Great, thank you, Jackie.
Question?
Yeah,
Yes,
please.
You need to come up. We can't.
Again, Kevin Eastman, since you were talking budget, the clear cutting that was done at the elementary school, the impact on Chipman Street, which is, I believe, shared ownership between the residents and the town, since spring of 1999, an agreement between the DPW, multiple administrators of the school, and myself, left me covering all routine maintenance costs, so that the town and the school, I believe, face zero cost for their ownership of Chipman Street. So when you're talking budget for the last 25 years almost, I've covered it on Chipman. Thank you.
Thank you.
There was
So-
another hand.
Oh, another hand, okay?
Yeah, Bob,
Yeah,
you want to come up?
Oh, you have to,
Well, we-
you have
yeah,
to.
we
Why
can't
don't you
hear.
come up and
You
introduce
have a
yourself?
bunch of neighbors at home who won't be able to hear you.
Hi, folks. Bob Bruns, 10 Ben's Way, Eastham. Chief, all the angst, I think, would be on getting officers financially could be removed if we knew or you thought that there would be a reduction in that overtime. If putting in, 300,000 for 2 new people would lower overtime by 300,000, we've got something that's cost neutral. Is there any way that you've been watching the overtime year over year, and what would your prediction for that be?
Let him answer.
Okay.
So as you might imagine, I've gotten this question quite a bit through this process. It's very difficult to put an exact prediction on it because with additional officers comes additional work, comes additional court time, comes additional training, comes additional report writing. And the idea of adding officers is it's to increase the number of officers on each shift. So if we have a minimum number of officers on each shift right now, we want to increase that by 1. If someone takes a vacation day, we still have to fill that position to continue the new minimum manning level. So I don't believe that there would be a drastic reduction in overtime. I do think that there will be some reduction in our off months when we maybe don't fill every one of those shifts because it's February 1st and it's pretty quiet out there. But there are other areas where we probably would spend a little more money in the areas I mentioned with the training, the report writing, the court time, things along that nature. So I know it doesn't give you a clear answer, but
Well, I think that's the big angst. Everybody wants the police to have great morale, and you guys do a wonderful job. It's really a question of cost. And if there was a way to try to quantify that, because you're going to get that question again at town meeting, and again and again. So if there was some prediction you could make based on, past performance or whatever, where you thought that there might be some savings, if you could quantify it, I think that would be helpful.
And I think too, Bob, the fire department, we've gone through that every year with their even when they increase by 4 firefighters or 6 or whatever we did the last time. It's that we just need that many more people. It's not necessarily that it's going to save on the overtime.
No,
And it's an unpredictable thing, so that's what makes it difficult too.
Say it
is-
isn't so, right?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Jamie?
Thank you. I think that was basically
Bob.
what I was going to say was, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that, the addition of these 2 officers is to get us up to some type of standard that we should be at already, not to reduce overtime at this point. We're not there yet. Hopefully, in a few years, we'll get there, but we just need to hit a standard that we haven't been at since 1995, so.
Mr.
Yeah.
Moderator, I just want to clarify a couple things and have a couple comments as well. Adam, tell me if you don't want me to speak out of school here. But first of all, the police department budget for overtime isn't $500,000, it's $300,000. The biggest driver of overtime for police and fire are line-of-duty injuries. Of course, there's overtime due to vacations and things like that, but we can't control line-of-duty injuries, and the police department staffing is such a level that if one absence on a shift, that's problematic. It needs to be filled right now. And so we have somebody out for 6 months on line-of-duty injury. Every single shift that person would have worked is being covered on overtime, because that's the level of staffing we're at. So it's, to me, it's not even a matter of, we can make all these ancillary arguments, but I'm telling you that it's a staffing crisis and supervision crisis. And when we talk about the cost, the biggest cost that I'm concerned about isn't about any extra overtime or any extra staff salaries. It's the cost to the community in the event that something goes wrong because we're not properly supervised and staffed. And so there's, an opportunity cost associated with that as well.
Great. Thank you. Quickly, and then we'll move on to the next one.
I just wanted to clarify, Rich Goslin again, just wanted to clarify, you said budget, and what I was referring to was the 2023 actual expenses, and I calculated out over 500,000 versus the budget.
Great, thanks. Not that this will make me feel old, but so in the 80s, when I was in high school, my mother was the chair of the finance committee, and I can vividly remember the same conversation about the fire department and overtime 30 years ago or 35 years ago. So some things still go on. So anyways, we'll move on. And so Article 3A is what we call in this town is our 5-year capital improvement, sort of a projecting plan. And so basically this is where the town administrator and the select board and all of the budget heads have gone through and kind of anticipated the capital improvements that they believe that would be best for the town over the next 5 years. And things are put in oftentimes. Sometimes there's regular things that will need to be replaced, like an ambulance or a police cruiser, DPW vehicle, but there's also items within that that are, maybe a wish list, or wouldn't it be great if we did this or did that? So people can kind of take a look at that and prepare any questions or comments for, the board or on the day of, or if you have any, you can email select board to kind of get impression of why that's on there. But that's kind of the gist of what that is.
And it really is just a planning tool. It's not anything that will be approved money-wise this year to raise taxes. We have to have it laid out ahead of time so that if it were to come to town meeting next year, it's been planned, it's been something on our radar, so to speak.
Yeah, and it's been, we've probably had that now for about 20 years, because when I was on the finance committee, we had just started that to have it, and that was over 20 years ago, so. So that's that. Article 3B is our capital budget. And I don't know if anybody wants, Rich, do you want to give a quick synopsis of what this is?
Well, I guess just going back to 3A and then I'll segue right into 3B is 3A, we feel like we've done a pretty good job getting everything that's on the horizon down on that piece of paper. So when people are considering 3B, they know they're voting money now and what's still ahead of them. So it gives you some manner of context of 3B is the budget that's in the most recent year of the 5-year plan and 3A. So if it's in the FY25 column for 3A, it very likely is in 3B asking to be funded. There are some exceptions to that, but by and large, anything that's in that plan and it gets vetted and its place to be funded, generally it's going to show up because it's shown on that 5-year plan for several years in a row, and now we're accomplishing or hoping to accomplish that task. One of the things that is a little unique that we do that is growing in popularity around the state is this almost a level funding approach. So you'll see in 3B that we have a vehicle replacement program or a facilities maintenance and repair program. That's our attempt to straight line these things so that every year everyone's used to putting a certain sum of money into replacement of police cruisers so that we always know what to expect and that our department heads can manage appropriately. And then the same thing for our facilities. Every year we know we might not need a roof this year, but we're going to need a roof in 8 years, and let's start setting aside resources to do that. And in the meantime, if some electrical outlets or some insulation needs to be replaced, or a window needs to be fixed, or a roof needs to be patched, that there's money in those accounts to do that, and we're not kind of nickel and diming every little repair and spending a lot of bureaucratic time on relatively minor things. And so what we go through with the Finance Committee every fall is this capital planning process. And this, most recently this fall and just completed this spring, was a facilities assessment, so that going forward, that these level-funded facility repair and maintenance programs are backed up by engineering studies with an analysis of the components that are going to be coming due for replacement over the next several years. So there's some evidence and some effort to be as accurate as possible behind them. They're not just numbers on a page. They are worked at pretty hard to make sure that it's an appropriate level of funding. And what that really does for us is it minimizes the number of times we need to go out to the bond market and borrow, millions of dollars, which has interest costs and borrowing costs associated with it. It's very expensive in staff time and actual dollars to go out and issue a bond. And then when you're paying it back over 10 or 20 years, there's a lot of interest associated with it. So to the extent we can level fund these things and provide resources every year from our free cash, we much prefer to do that. It does deliver savings to the town and efficiencies in the departments getting what they need when they need it.
Great. And so I have a question, and I thought maybe you would get to this, but I was going to put you on the spot. So on the Capital 3B, I'm sure everybody is looking at this like I am and thinking there's a lot of free cash on this page, and I'm thinking we'll take all we can get, but I'm sure it's not quite like that. So maybe you could explain to
not
people at
free.
home the difference between tax levy and free cash
Sure.
in 30 seconds or less.
Free cash is derived from primarily two sources. You're in front of you, that you're looking at in the warrant is budgets for the departments to spend. To the extent that money isn't spent, that becomes savings to the town, so to speak. That savings, that unspent budgetary money, closes back to our general fund and becomes free cash. It gets certified by the Department of Revenue and is available for spending again, but it has to be appropriated by town meeting. Likewise, the other source of savings is all our budgets in town have to be balanced by state law. So all these appropriations, you budgets you see for the department adding up to 40 some odd $1 million are balanced by revenues, largely the property tax, but there's other revenues and there's other sources. Anytime we perform better on our revenues, that is surplus. That surplus is more than what was budgeted. So if you had $40 million of revenue funding $40 million of expenses, and you don't spend $40 million, that's saving. If you get 41 instead of $40 million of revenue, that's savings. All those savings close out to our general fund and become surplus, and the state will certify that amount. We go through an audit process at the end of every year, and they'll say, of those, all those savings that you had, we're certifying that your general fund balance is X amount of dollars, and of that amount of money, a smaller subset of that is what's called the free cash, which is available for town meeting to appropriate. And since free cash isn't guaranteed, it's a thing that happens and has to be certified every year. We don't use it in our operating budget because it's not a recurring revenue that would fund a recurring expense. But it is a perfect thing to use for things like our capital budget, and especially one-time things. And so that's how we minimize borrowing costs and minimize our use of our tax levy for things that we can use free cash for. It represents the savings from our budgets. We have a not too aggressive, but also not too conservative. I think we're a pretty good spot at the level of free cash we're generating, which means that we have some flexibility within our budgets, and that's intentional, so that we do generate free cash, and so that we can address emergencies if and when they occur in the course of a fiscal year within the operating budget, without having to have a big town meeting for a relatively benign issue. So if the money isn't spent on a departmental budget, it doesn't go anywhere. We don't get to spend it again or carry it over or anything like that. It all has to close out, and that's what generates our free cash, and you all get the opportunity to appropriate from it.
Okay. Thank you, Rich. And so, not seeing any questions on that. So we'll go right to 3C, which is authorize the lease purchase of an ambulance. See anything? Okay.
I'll just add, Mr. Moderator, since Fire Chief isn't here tonight, but this is a replacement of our 3rd ambulances. We do have 3 ambulances in our fleet now, in case one's out of service, and it's also an attempt to minimize the amount of mileage on any one ambulance, because we're trying to keep them for a length of 7 years now, which is hard with just 2, but if we have 3, we can balance out the mileage and get extra years of service out of our existing vehicles. These are very expensive vehicles now. This is probably, we have a existing deal that would go on this, but going forward, you can add $100,000 to an ambulance easily going forward. And it also takes upwards of 2 years now to get from date of order to delivery to get an ambulance. So it's really important that we have a third ambulance. In this case, we're following a lease purchase arrangement, which allows us to pay for it over 5 years. And this is funded not through the tax levy, but through the ambulance fund, which is, gets money from ambulance fees. So the people that are utilizing the service are paying for the cost of the ambulance.
And kind of for those in the audience or at home, you'll see, and some of the articles will require a majority vote. This is an example of one that will be a 2/3 majority vote.
5 years?
So with that, Article 4 is other budget appropriations. And Rich, do you want to just give us a quick of what this is all about? Page 26.
So, Article 2 is the operating budget. That's annual recurring costs funded by annual recurring revenues. Article 3 is our capital budget, capital costs with some annual revenues and mostly free cash or one-time sources. And then Article 4 is everything else. Pretty much everything falls into operating or capital, but there are a few things such as transfers to reserve funds, and some things that don't quite fit into either, like we might have a one-time thing, for example, town-wide IT applications. They're not part of the operating budget yet, because we might want to pilot something or test something out or try something out before we adopt it as a way of being efficient and conservative with the budget dollars. And it's yet not a capital item because it's not an asset that would be buying. Usually these are third-party applications that you access through the internet type of thing. So that's an IT application. But most of these are funding of our reserves. The biggest one here is a transfer to the wastewater stabilization fund, so let me specifically reference that. The Select Board and the Finance Committee have had a finance policy of not utilizing short-term rental revenues to fund the operating budget. Several years ago, when those receipts were authorized by state law, those were considered the state's contribution to local wastewater planning efforts. And so we've held true to that intent, and knowing that we are doing wastewater planning now, and knowing that we will likely have a significant infrastructure request at an upcoming town meeting in the future that will be costly, we're stewarded those funds and haven't used short-term rental receipts for the operating budget at all. We did use it to pay for debt service for Town Center Plaza, and we are using them now to commit to the funding of our wastewater planning bond that we just issued following last town meeting. However, up through this fiscal year, FY '23, we hadn't spent it at all. So that $1.2 million represents unspent revenue, which if you remember the free cash explanation I just gave you, any unspent revenues go back to the general fund and become free cash. Well, that's what happened here. We didn't budget $1.2 million of short-term rental receipts, so it became free cash. And holding true to our financial policy, we're taking that free cash and contributing it to a wastewater stabilization fund to minimize the future cost of our wastewater infrastructure that we'll be discussing in a future year, knowing that that's on the horizon. And so that's a way to hopefully minimize the tax rate. And the plan is to utilize these wastewater receipts so that when we do have a big bond that has to be issued for wastewater infrastructure, when that happens, we have a funding source, and we're hoping that it'll be at least 25% of the overall debt service, and we have 25% from the subsidy from the county for the Cape and Islands Water Protection Trust, and what's the other, hoping to steward about 25%, another 25% from what we call debt drop-off, which means that hopefully the impact on the tax rate when this happens will be minimal. So it's all part of a strategy and part of a plan. So Article 4 and the wastewater stabilization fund are super important parts of that plan. The other amounts here transferring to reserves are just to maintain the reserves at the benchmark levels that we've identified. We do try to track the standards of Standards and Poor, which is our bond rating agency. And right now, we're rated a AA+, which is the second to best rating.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Everybody looks like, everybody having fun? Fun? Okay, good.
Can you
good.
take those down, because they're anonymous?
So we're going to go to Article 5A, which is Specialized Energy Code. And Roberta Longley is here, and I initially told her that she could give some, kind of just tell you why this is here, not necessarily a debate on whether it's a good, bad, or indifferent, but I'd like to give you a few minutes to at least introduce what your thought process was in your committee bringing this forth.
Right here?
You can sit right there or up here, whatever's easiest for you.
Okay. Thanks, Scott. Hi, I'm Roberta Longley, and I am the chair of the town's Climate Action Committee. At town meeting 4 years ago, the people of Eastham overwhelmingly voted in favor of making a commitment to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to zero in Eastham at the earliest tactically and economically feasible time. One of the most important ways to meet that commitment is by managing the greenhouse gas emissions that come from buildings. Surprisingly, our buildings produce about 40% of all of our greenhouse gas emissions here in Eastham. So, in Massachusetts as well. So the focus of recent state building codes have been on increasing energy efficiency in our buildings, in our homes and businesses. However, last year, the Specialized Energy Code was rolled out by the Department of Energy Resources and can now be adopted by any municipality in the Commonwealth as part of its current building code. You can read the summary, essentially, of how this would work. It's pretty well described in the warrant. But I just want to make a point that the purpose of it is to significantly reduce our greenhouse gas emissions from all new construction. It doesn't affect our current homes and businesses. It's strictly for new construction. And it encourages, but it doesn't mandate, cleaner and more efficient all-electric construction using high-efficiency heat pumps and electric appliances. It's basically a simple, straightforward way to help us meet our commitment, the commitment we made as a town to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions.
Thanks, Roberta.
Great, thank you. And just because I figure if I have questions, then people at home will have questions as well. So it looks like this would be changes or additional regulations upon construction, right?
Correct.
In some way, in new construction.
Right.
So people are going to want to know who's going to enforce this, and I'll just kind of tell you, so maybe you can be ready for this. Like, who's going to enforce it? What's it going to cost? And how do people get information on it? Is this a zoning bylaw? Is this where is this changing what in our town? So, you can kind of take a couple minutes and do that real quick. But I think people are going to want to know those questions, like how's this all going to roll out?
All right. Well, first of all, it is enforced by the building inspector, as all building codes are. And this code does not affect any of our taxes. There are no increased taxes or costs associated with the code. I could go further into how the code works, but I
No, I
got a
think,
sense that you
I think that's
want to
great.
keep it limited. so-
Yep, no, and I appreciate that very much,
Right.
but I think it's, people are going to want to know
Sure.
sort of like, and so I think that that's great, and if you can address that when you're speaking to people, I think it
Absolutely.
will be helpful.
Okay.
To say it's a building code change.
Right.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you very much, and, I think we've talked about this before. People give a lot of time on these committees, and oftentimes, nobody notices until you get there, and you didn't just show up today. You've been working on this, I'm sure, for a while, so. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Roberta.
Okay.
No questions.
So we'll go to 5B, which is a land acquisition article.
Want me to-
Yeah, you could give it a quick, it's pretty clear, I think, but go ahead.
So basically 5B and 5C, yeah, basically, they're the same article. The Seashore Park and the town of Eastham have been working in concert around some issues that we've had since roughly 2016. So Nauset Light Beach Road, as most of you know, falling into the ocean, or soon to be falling into the ocean, and it's been at risk for a long time. It became really unsafe, so the town wanted to build a new road. It took us several years to negotiate where that new road would go. We had to use seashore land, so they granted us a license to build the new road in exchange for an agreement that we would do a land swap with them at a future date. A land swap with the federal government has to go all the way to Congress in Washington. So this is the first step, is basically we are agreeing to acquire the land that our new public road sits on, which is about a mile long, and acquire the land adjacent to the town landing at Salt Pond, which has our shellfish shack and operations. We're going to take those pieces from the seashore and trade in exchange a piece of land near our District H well site, near the water tower that's just being built. That land is particularly attractive to the seashore. It's in the park, and it has several vernal pools. So the next step in this process, if you approve this transfer, would be we would go to an appraiser, get all the parcels appraised, and then sort of carve them to the size that we need to make it a fair and even trade. We don't want to exchange cash with the seashore. We just want to figure out the best way to do it. So our parcel is a little larger, so if we need to cut that parcel down, we will. And I think the article is clear about that.
And so for a procedural, we will vote on them separately.
Yes.
Okay. And if one passes and one does not?
Then we would not be able to do the trade, basically, yeah.
Don't do that to us.
Is that clear to everybody?
I'm not sure how we'd give them back the road, but
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like a nice
We'd have to come back next year.
we'd have to come back next year.
We'll be here.
Plant trees.
All right, so that's 5B and C. So 5D is an article called Prohibitions Related to Short-Term Rental of Residential Properties. And again, trying not to get into too much of a debate tonight, but if somebody has a question on where, you know, where the idea for something like this came from, there's a pretty good write-up that the Select Board has put together in the article.
No questions.
Okay.
Wow.
So that takes us to
Pesticides.
There's a hand.
okay, all right, so that takes us to 6, but I see a hand, so.
Oh.
Where are
Oh,
we?
online?
Oh, online, I'm sorry, okay.
That's all right.
Apparently, our speakers aren't working,
Oh.
so I would ask Brianna to type her question, perhaps.
Okay.
Oh dear. Just the Zoom people can't.
Oh,
They can hear us, but we can't hear them.
okay.
Let's see if it works by chance.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, all right.
Go ahead.
Sorry, there was no speaker that showed up for me to click.
Ah,
We can hear you. Go ahead.
if
Okay,
you
so
could
my
just state your
question
full
is-
name, please.
Sorry, Brianna Sapella.
Thank you.
In reviewing these, I noticed that you have decided that cottage colonies are exempt.
Correct.
Can you share with me the definition of the cottage colony?
Well, it's one parcel of land with
More
one
than-
owner, more than one building, cottage, one septic system,
Seasonal.
seasonal.
Okay, and does the town have a list of the cottage colonies that would be exempt?
Yes.
And currently, how does the town handle the rental certificates, the short-term rental certificates on cottage colonies? Is it one per cottage colony? Is it one per house?
Currently, it's one per unit. So if you have a cottage colony with 7 units, we require you to have 7 rental certificates.
This would change.
Be different price.
Okay, so as far as going forward, all those 7 rental units would be exempt from the 2 or more? Or is that considered one? And then you could have another one in addition to that?
It's considered one.
It's considered one.
So then you could potentially have like another cottage colony?
I suppose
I-
one person could own 2 cottage colonies, yes.
Okay,
There's only 2 in town, so
okay.
the rest have all gone condo, I guess. So,
Might have Paul.
oh.
Brianna,
Okay.
does that answer your question?
I just want to make sure that this is being answered appropriately too, and I think Paul might have something to add
To the definition.
to the
Ah,
definition.
sorry, yeah. I
Well,
was
why don't
just
we
sort
do
of
this,
spitballing it there.
so we have Paul, so we'll have Paul speak first and then Rich.
Okay. You don't want to speak.
Rich doesn't want to speak.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify, so the warrant article references cottage colony as it's defined in the zoning bylaw. So that has a specific definition, which is a group of 2 or more detached cottages located on the same lot, each cottage containing 1 dwelling unit designed for temporary, transient, seasonal living. So we have really just 2 of what we all think of as the traditional cottage colonies with multiple units, but there are some isolated properties around the town where you could have 2 unit, well, I know there are some, they have 2 units on one property. Those are technically fall under the definition of cottage colony, but it's really just a handful of those. So just to clarify, that's the definition that this would adhere to. And we would treat, as we said, we would treat those as 1 unit. So if there's 7 units, we would permit them as 1 for the cottage colonies.
All right.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Will have to be seasonal as well.
Seasonal.
Thank you, Paul. I'm assuming we got.
Is that all your questions, Brianna?
Brianna?
Yes, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Very welcome. All right, so seeing nothing else on that, we will go to Article 6, Home Rule Petition Pesticide Reduction. Again, Laura, I'll give you the same kind of idea. If you could get us to where, why, you could grab the table if you want.
Can I stand?
Yeah, you can stand. absolutely.
Perfect. Try not to mess up your pages here. Good evening. Hello. I'm Laura Kelly. I live in Northeastham happily for the last 25 years. Cape resident here. Bringing forward a home rule petition for reduction of pesticide use. That is specifically for outdoor pesticide use. You can still spray your own body and your children and your pets and inside your house as you wish. This is specifically for outdoor pesticide use because it is proven to travel. It travels, if it is not fully applied, it travels in the air, water, and soil. So this is what got the town of Orleans boards together with thoughtful intention to safeguard our economy, to protect the public from the hazards of pesticides, and promote a healthy environment for all. On October 17th in 2023, Orleans citizens passed this home rule petition by 68%. Again, it's only on outdoor pesticide use because it travels in nature. So if your neighbor is applying it, it affects the elderly and the young when they're exposed especially. So it's this kind of feeling that we're trying to we're trying to reduce. It is not a ban of the sale at all. This is like the baby step. It's not the top. It's just the first step, so it's a reduction, not a ban. There are many organizations that support this. Barnstable County, Cape Cod Commission, Assembly of Delegates, the Commissioners, Sierra Club, APCC. As we know, anything that ends in CIDES is created with the intention to kill. Unfortunately, it travels. So I just want to try to be quick with all this. I'm sure you're familiar with WildCare. They say 99% of birds that come in now have a rodent aside, many different types. And it's that kind of thing that's occurring in nature. We call this unintended consequences. We don't intend to harm things in nature, including our neighbors and our ponds and such, but it is occurring. And so this pesticide reduction home rule petition is a way to share with the state that we wish to have the authority given to the town boards to lessen, to reduce the amount of pesticides. So currently, there is a bill, H4481, at the State House, and we're hoping that other Cape Cod towns join the mission. Following Orleans, Wellfleet also will be voting on this. It's on their town warrant on May 20th, and also Harwich on May 6th.
thank you.
If I could just clarify one thing in the warrant article itself, I just wanted to explain for all those at home that really want to know. On the, let's see, it's on the warrant. Thank you for putting this in here. Pardon me for a second, I'm on the wrong page. Here we go. On the exemptions, a lot of people want to know, about the exemptions. So I just want to share that it is under 6 exemptions B, where we take the language straight from MDOT, Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources, straight from what Massachusetts is already using, and put it in this warrant. So that goes on for pages and pages. There are a lot of exemptions, recertified, NOFA certified. It goes on. So that, I just wanted to clarify, is a part of this warrant, as well as exceptions. C, waivers. There's a waiver attached to this, which allows a town to decide. So if I'm a golf course, we don't have golf courses in town, so I'll use this as an example. If we're a golf course and we want to be exempt by pesticide application, we sign a waiver. The waiver, again, came from the state. It's one page, what it is, where to apply. Cape Cod Mosquito Control could do this for this town. The waiver is at the manager's office, and then it gets discussed with the select board, and they decide if it is allowed to be exempt or not. So that's kind of the procedure. So where there's an in, there's always an out. It's there. It's in writing. So just to clarify that. So thank you very much. Please support the pesticide reduction home rule petition, because it will make a difference down the line for us all.
Thanks, Laura.
Questions?
Cheryl. has a-
Go ahead, Cheryl.
Cheryl Gale, 40 Saltwinds Drive, it may be in the warrant.
If I could get you
sorry.
to slide that microphone up closer to you, just.
Cheryl Gale,
yeah,
40 Saltwinds Drive. Just, I'm not opposed to this, I just trying to get clarification. This gets passed, has to go to the State House, they have to say, okay. Then it comes back and the town creates what, and then we'll create something else and it has to go to town meeting again, or not? You
No,
know
I
what I
think
mean?
if-
Like, I'm trying to see how expeditious this.
It's not expeditious. If it goes to the State House, so then it goes to the Senate and the House. Both bodies have to approve the same piece of legislation.
Right.
So it's hammered out, it'll probably be hammered out for, I don't know, a year and a half. Our charter took almost 2.5 years. If there are any questions, that's what, then they have their own legal counsel. So it does not have to come back to us for approval. Basically, once the legislature gets a hold of it, they will create a new law.
They create a law for the whole state?
Yes.
But, there are usually laws that then towns can opt into. So they basically approve it as a law.
And they'll
Sort of like the
specify
short-term
what can be
rental.
done and what not be
Right, sort of
done.
like the short-term rental. That was a home rule petition. But after enough towns sent it up to the, legislature, finally they came back with something that then was an opt-in for towns.
So we can't change it. Whatever
no.
details they come up with, we don't have the authority to say,
No.
we want to do more, we want to do less.
We have the option to opt into it, and that's it.
Right, most likely we'll have that option to
Right.
opt in or not.
And right now, this is before the legislature because the town of Orleans has placed it before the legislature. So it
Same language.
exists
Yeah.
in this same language already
Right.
up in Boston.
But the reality of them approving something that
Right.
2 towns or 6 towns are,
Yeah. And they only have so long before we would have to bring it back to town meeting.
Before it goes
doesn't
dead.
get
Yeah,
any
yeah.
traction, right.
okay, I just didn't understand the whole
This
process.
is the first bite of the apple.
No, that was a good, that was a good question.
Yeah, it was a very good question.
Thank you.
And, thank you, Cheryl. And I anticipate, in the article, it mentions the town manager enforcement. Is there a way the town envisions that going forward, or are we not there yet?
We're not there
We're
yet.
not there yet.
Okay. You good? The what?
I just wanted to let you know that it does, if I may, really quick. I just wanted to let you know that it does die in committee after 2 years.
2 years.
So it's a 2-year process. So, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You can refile it pretty easily, though.
Okay.
Oh, Mr. Chair.
Oh, yes, sir.
Keith Burr 20 Lucinda Court. Curious as to why the Finance Committee voted 5-4 and not 9-0 the way most of their voting has been. What are they seeing or what are they against that the Select Board's not against?
Fair question.
Fair question.
Yeah.
Anyone from the Finance Committee want to?
Mary?
Yeah.
This is Mary Shaw, co-chair of the Finance Committee.
Mary Shaw, 850 Schoolhouse Road, and a number of the folks that voted against it are against it because of the penalties that they're recommending to be applied, and they're listed in here. The $100 under
$300, they're
under
out.
number 8 penalties.
Right.
Mary, did they want some? They also want some-
That was the genesis of the question I was asking about the enforcement when I saw the penalties thinking somebody might have that question. So thank you for raising that. So we will move on to 7A, zoning prohibited uses fractional ownership. And again, I think if you read through this, you can come to your own opinion on what the select board was trying to do or the zoning change was trying to do.
And just some news today, I think the legislature did approve Provincetown's,
Attorney
or
General.
Attorney General, sorry, approved this bylaw, so we have the same language as Provincetown used.
Excellent. All right, thank you, Amy. So moving to 7B, which is zoning perimeter vegetation. And let me just, before we go to this, and I'm not sure if somebody from the ZBA is here, is this, because if you'll remember last year's town meeting, we had a lot of tree cutting and conversation about that, and I'm wondering, just for the people that are watching and people who are here, is this a continuation, a change to that, or is this something completely separate? Maybe you could address that quickly?
So this is a sort of a housekeeping cleanup article to adjust the language from what was passed at last year's town meeting. We passed the perimeter vegetation, which basically requires to maintain a 6-foot buffer around your property line. And actually, the issue that we're trying to fix came up at town meeting last year, because the language that's in there discusses that you could achieve this vegetated buffer around your property through a number of ways, including the area being landscaped with grass. So you could cut down all the trees, plant grass, and it would technically meet the definition. So we're really just trying to clean up that piece, because that's the antithesis of what we were trying to accomplish. So really, it's just to amend the language to strike the grass piece and put more specific language that it's supposed to be a vegetated buffer, trees, shrubs, undergrowth, so that you have kind of a naturalized, healthy area in between properties. So that's really what it is. It's nothing, it's cleaning up last year's article that was approved.
Thank you, Paul.
Great. Thank you very much, Paul. And you know, I remember being at last year's town meeting, and, you know, when you get these sort of articles in front of you as a taxpayer and a citizen, you know, you come at it from a different point. You know, there's certain people that come at these articles as a, you know, big picture, you know, Eastham as a whole. And then there's people that come at these articles, you know, from you're sore because of what your neighbor did or was allowed to do, and then, you know, you want to make sure you might be able to get to. So I could see how these get a lot of conversation going, you know, because we all care about Eastham, but, you know, and then when your neighbor does something or you don't get to do something, then it becomes personal on that level. And, you know, gentleman who spoke earlier to that, you know, obviously.
I think he had his hand up
Yeah,
again.
his hand up again.
Oh, great. Okay.
Kevin Eastman, 30 Chipman Street. I wanted to clarify one response Amy had when she said the timing of the clear cutting I'm talking about was immediately prior to the town vote. I am also putting forward that there has been a continuation since then. It is not just that. So I believe that the things after would then be a violation.
True. No, I was talking about your reference to the page in the thing was about the town vote. It wasn't about,
When the clear cutting happens?
Yes.
Okay. Clarification. Thank you.
So we'll move right along to 7C, which is also a zoning article, site coverage standards. I'm not sure if Paul wants to speak to that, but why not, Paul? Yeah, I mean,
Might as well make use of it.
on the payroll.
So again, this is another housekeeping article to amend language related to the bylaw that was passed last year about site coverage. So last year, we established limitations in site coverage based on lot sizes. And, excuse me, and what we overlooked last year was that most of our properties have one dwelling, one lot, one dwelling, and you can figure out the math based on what's in the bylaw, but we didn't contemplate what to do when we have a situation like a condo complex where you have multiple owners and they each have a unit, and how do you figure out what the development potential would be, how many units can add on to their cottage and to what extent. So this is really just to put some language in there to clarify that in that situation, the development potential, the site coverage expansion would simply be divided evenly amongst the cottage colony, or the condo owners, except for in the rare case where if we actually have information about percentage of ownership that's in the, that can be provided, we would follow that, but I think we really only have that information for one unit, so it's divided equally, and it's really just, like I said, just to have it in the bylaw so that it's clear, owners know what to expect and how to plan for the future of their projects, and the town knows how to implement it.
Thank you, Paul. So that was Article 7C. Also have a zoning Article 7D. I imagine, Paul, you want to just give everybody a
Up
quick...
and down. He
where
needs
you're
the
at.
exercise tonight.
I shouldn't have sat down. So this, again, is another sort of cleanup article. Last year, we passed a change to the bylaw that altered the manner in which the site coverage which is the development potential on residential lots. It altered how that was calculated. It used to be calculated on the total lot area. And what was changed last year was to have the site coverage calculated on the buildable upland area. That provides a more realistic basis on what, on what size house you can have relative to the usable space. And it also brings it into alignment with how Conservation Commission regulations and Board of Health regulations define development. So what we realized was the language that was in the bylaw defines buildable upland and lot area, and it uses among other things, it defines that it does not include areas underwater, obviously creeks, ponds, bogs, so forth, saltwater marshes, but it also says areas subject to flooding from high tides. And we discovered that this can be subjective because there are a number of ways that an engineer could calculate what area could be subject to flooding from high tides, and they all could be valid depending on how it's being calculated and the factors. And we had this come up a couple of times at planning board hearings with a couple of cases that came before it. So this is really just to clean up the language, clarify it, and tie it to a specific known quantitative method, which is to base the high tide calculation on what's called highest astronomical tide, or HAT. And it's a known, like I said, it's a known quantifiable number that a surveyor and engineer could get to, and makes it less subjective. So again, it's just a cleanup article based on what was approved last year. And so in order to do that, we need to amend the definitions of buildable upland, and the same for lot area.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Can I say one thing?
Okay.
Jerry has comment.
I'd like to say,
Jerry Saracel.
yes, we have quite a few articles here cleaning up some zoning language, and I just want you to know that it's difficult in writing regulations or zones to know everything. It's once it comes out, people try and push the edges and see what it is. So this is a cleanup. We're learning, and we go forward and fix it. And it is no way should anyone say that the zoning task force didn't do a fantastic job last year and this year going forward. This happens whenever you write laws or regulations that, people try and push the edges, and you see, oh, this is against the spirit of the law. So that's what this is, and I want to make sure that people don't think as we're approving this that we have any negative comments on the zoning task force. I don't at all. I commend them, and I'm just glad I wasn't on it.
Great, thanks, Jerry.
You have,
Kevin Eastman, 30 Chipman. To follow your point, you kept saying sometimes people push the envelope, sometimes towns can too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So Article 8, and for anyone who's new, we have what's called a Community Preservation Committee in town, and through a state formula, certain monies from your tax bill or real estate transactions goes into what we call the CPA fund, and then there's a committee in town that goes through and uses the formula that's there and has applications submitted to them on how they might spend the money. And so there's going to be a number of these articles that will tell us how we're going to spend CPA money, and just based on tax revenue and transactions. There's a certain amount of money every year that's in the fund, and then so there'll be, I imagine we'll have somebody from the CPA, which will talk at town meeting, kind of, I hope, and kind of let us know what they were thinking, and you can kind of see where they are allocating the money, in the where the committee decided to allocate the money based on presentations and so on and so forth. So I don't know if anybody says any specific questions on that. So that's 8A. 8B is a funding article that the town sets aside some money for
CPA funds.
for a housing initiative fund that's sort of an educational component. I don't know if anybody has any questions on that. Article 8C is, this is historic renovation article for a building that the town purchased a couple of years ago at town meeting. I don't know if anybody has any questions on that.
We have a
Yes, sir.
just that one. Oh, wait, no, this one too.
Keith Burrett, 20 Lucinda Court. With this structure, being as old as it is, at what point do we keep the historic restoration versus the ADA? For example, the front door currently is 27 inches wide, and I'm assuming, and I'm not an ADA expert, I don't pretend to be, I think is somewhere around 32. So now we're talking about, if you're going to go strict ADA, you're talking about changing that facade in the front door, which now takes away from the historic preservation of that property. And I'm wondering if there's somebody here that can address that. And that's just one issue, but it's kind of right up front.
Okay, so we're going to try and do both, actually. So one of the pieces of the mission of Community Preservation Act is also to increase handicapped accessibility in buildings. And so we're going to hopefully do both by keeping the front facade the same, but creating a new handicapped access on one side of the building, on the interior side of the building, with a new handicap parking spot.
On the, you're going to have an access to the side of the building?
Mhm.
Well, but then that's going to limit the size of your usable floor space.
It's going to create another doorway, yes.
Right, which is going to alter the exterior of the dwelling and take away some of the historic significance of the dwelling.
Perhaps. I mean, I don't believe so. I think that they've done it, the plans show something that does not really detract from the building at all. It does add another door where a window is, but I don't think that's a huge, a huge change in
And
the
it's
structure
not
of
on
the
the street
building.
side.
It's not on the street side.
It's on the back side.
Then you've got to be giving them some kind of asphalt or concrete access to that backside of the building because it's all dirt and
I think
grass.
there already is for the upstairs units.
There's a
There's
path.
already walkway.
No, but it's not.
There, in the new plan, there is a path to the new handicapped access from a parking spot.
Okay, are they available for us to inspect?
Yes, I think we have them. I mean, they're not plans that are ready to go out to bid, but you can certainly inspect them anytime you'd like.
And where would we find those?
You can come to the Community Development Department.
Okay.
And I just have one clarification. So, because I think people are, if they're doing what I'm doing, they're trying to divide up the numbers to make it look correct. And so, just for everyone, so the town has $1,251,791 available for CPA funds. Is that?
No.
No,
not
okay.
that much.
So this is why all right, so,
Well, yes,
well, that's what you wrote.
this is the.
Well, that's for this year.
Correct, for this year,
Yep.
okay. So I'm just trying to help people at home, because it's.
It
it's
does
sort of-
not add up.
It does not, okay.
They have other monies that are from previous years.
Okay, all right, so that's where we're headed. So for this year's budget, what people will be asked to be voting on, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. 125,179 for open space.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay? The same amount for historic preservation, the same amount for affordable housing, the same amount for active recreation. Okay, so,
Those are the statutory requirements.
right, to meet the minimums, right?
10
Okay,
10%.
great. All right, and then, obviously, somebody's got to administer this, help the committee. So we have 62,590 in administrative costs. So we take those 5 numbers, and then the 10,000 that's going to the Cape Housing Institute, and,
Those
No.
are separate
No,
appropriations.
Those are
Okay,
not
this-
necessarily being spent.
Okay.
They're just being reserved.
okay,
Right, Mary? That's what,
okay. So I'm just,
Yeah.
want everyone to, be able to follow along as so.
okay, so I think the easiest way to explain it is the first article takes the new revenue that's coming in
Okay.
and splits it up per the formula that the CPA has given us from the state, from the law.
Okay.
Right? And then the remaining articles spend money, ask the town to use money that's already been in reserve or already in the coffers or coming into the coffers on these particular projects.
Okay, so we're reserving this money for a future, okay?
Yep.
And then we're spending on the next, okay?
Yep.
So the Article 8 is basically, we're just reserving,
Yes.
or 8A is reserved.
Yes.
Okay.
8A is reserved.
Okay, and then B is, so in case people want to know what we're actually spending on this year, 10,000, the Cape Housing and Institute,
Yeah, they'd have to add B
See,
through I.
Million eight, not including the administrative.
okay.
Thank you,
So,
Mary.
so 10,740 for Massasoit, 100,000 for Brewster Housing Project. Okay?
yes.
Orleans Finch Skate Park, another 7,500. 50,000 for the elementary school playground. Mary, if I'm wrong, correct me. I figured you might be. 200,000, 447.29 for a schoolhouse museum addition. And 80,000 for Sandy Meadow Trail Extension. And then the admin.
Scott, HG is, HE is 447,200.
You add the two together.
You have to do it together. What happened is for 8G, the historic fund reserves, 200 plus thousand, that eliminates that specific reserve just for historic funds. And then there's the general funds that are left over that the CPA has, and you're getting another 246,000 out of that, and together, that's what it is. That's how it works. You have those, from 8A, the 125,000 for each one of those 4 aiders, that's required. That goes into their specific funds and can't be used, the open space funds cannot be used for recreation. But the general funds then can be used for whatever thing that the CPA votes on and then the town approves at town meeting, and that's how that works. So 8G shows you exactly how it works. They use up the historic fund reserve, and they take the rest out of the undesignated balance.
So in essence, any one of those buckets with 125,000, you could take the unreserved, all of it, and put it if the project was right.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm to the page now. It has some signatures on it. So-
There you go.
So, and just one other little thing, that I'd mentioned earlier on that there was the things that are in the charter that you will be voting on a week and a half after town meeting. That is in the back of, I think, all the warrants, right, Jackie?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so there's that, if you wanted to reference any of the things that, basically, most of the changes were procedural and clarifications of things. So, I think we're pretty done. There's a big crowd here, and if anybody has any other questions, thank you very much for those watching at home, those here in the audience. Thank you to the board,
Thanks for
Jackie,
coming.
and
Thanks.
town employees. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you all.
All right, we'll move on. We have administrative matters, aquaculture grant license, transfer of N1, N2, and N7, sadly from Jared Collins, who is deceased, to his wife Alana Collins and his brother Cameron Collins.
I'll make a motion to approve the transfer.
I'll second that.
All right, any discussion? I guess for those that are paying attention, we had voted this earlier last fall to Jared's brother, and it was our mistake that Alana wasn't included in that for the law. So we're rectifying that. All right, so we'll vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 4-0.
What?
Devin's here.
All right, what do we got next?
Sorry you had to sit through all our, but now you know exactly what's going on at town meeting, so. All right, extension. Stephen McClellan, Site B25E, requests approval to expand to Site B1, a total of 1 acre.
I'll make a motion to approve the extension.
I'll second that.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 4-0. All right, employee appointments. Shellfish Constable appointment, Devin Nunez.
So we need a motion to approve the appointment of Devin Nunez as Shellfish Constable. Someone wants to move that.
I second that.
All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 4-0.
Thank you.
You're official.
Thank you for sitting through that.
I told her she didn't have to.
Yeah. Do you live in town?
I live in Wellesley.
Oh, well.
But you know all about Eastham
East
now.
Town meeting
right.
now, that's right.
And even stuff you might not have wanted.
Yeah.
All right, next we have reappointment to the Barnstable County Home Consortium Advisory Council, Rachel Butler.
I move that we reappoint Rachel Butler to the Barnstable County Home Consortium Advisory Council.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 4-0. Let's see, Housing Authority, Michael Lapardo.
Yes, I move that we reappoint Michael Lapardo to the Housing Authority.
Second?
Second, okay.
All right, any discussion?
Yeah,
Yes.
one point. The Housing Authority is an elected position, except the state has required that a resident of the Housing Authority be a member of the Housing Authority. So one of our
Oh.
slots, we do not elect anymore. And I am not totally, so he was elected by the residents, and I think we can reappoint him. I think that we appoint him. I'm not sure if just the election of the residents does it. I tried to ask,
Right, if this
but
is
I didn't
just-
get a response.
yeah.
So we can, so if we go through and reappoint, we're not really causing any
Disruption.
disruption if, whether this is just notification or reappointment, so I think we just
Gotcha.
do it.
Okay. Did we have a motion?
I have the motion in
Okay,
a second.
second, that's right, yeah, we did.
All right, any other points? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 4-0. All right, Community Rating System Progress Report on Implementation of Credited Plan.
It's from Paul, but it's just an FYI.
Okay,
We don't have to do anything with it.
Don't have to do it.
Thank goodness.
Or we
'cause
could make him get up again.
that's right. All right, licensing, Orleans Eastham Elks, common victular, all alcohol on premise, and entertainment license.
We didn't do this last time?
We
No.
We
had,
did this, all right.
is this for the building or for the outside? This is for the lodge.
Yes.
There was a question on the lodge about
Whether it was.
menu.
Kendra said that she included a memo from the owner.
Where was it?
Kind of stating what they were doing for food options.
I guess I must have missed this. Do we know what
I
page
don't
it's
have,
on?
I don't have bookmarks, so I can't quickly find it here. Let's see here. Can you read
Here
that?
we go. I have the menu. It's on page 115 of 133.
Oh. Where am I?
Yeah, I wish it would let you like click through
Okay.
pages.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, Jamie, there's
Mary,
just that
thank
email.
you.
Do you see that part?
Yeah.
That says, most functions end by 8 PM, which are on Wednesday night, cookouts or seasonal pig roast, clam bake. We have a couple of outdoor wedding receptions, but they don't typically go past 9 PM.
Okay, thank you. I did not, yeah, I think
Yeah,
I got
there's
lost in the
it's a-
shuffle with everything.
Yeah, that's a
Good
little further
information.
down. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So we need a motion and a second to approve those 3 licenses for the Elks.
So moved.
I'll second it.
All right, any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 4-0. All right, Eastham Landing on Campground Road, common victular and seasonal wine and malt alcohol.
I'll make a motion to approve the common victular and seasonal wine and malt alcohol at Eastham Landing.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 4-0. Eastham Historical Society, one-day liquor license
One
on
day.
June 6th. Wine and malt only.
Move we approve their one-day license.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? 4-0.
Fundraiser for their edition.
All right, new and upcoming agenda, town meeting. That's what's upcoming.
Well, don't, we have to do motions too, don't we, or do we do that?
Oh,
We
gosh.
have
you're right.
to assign
We'll-
our.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Let's make it snappy, folks.
Let's,
Oh,
yeah,
boy,
let's do that
okay.
real
About
quick.
to like leave,
No
having
pressure
not
from-
done
from
that.
Jamie.
Been like,
Imagine.
No.
Can you
All
give
right.
me the pencil?
Now, this
actually,
is
because
just,
I
would,
got pencil by Amy. Amy, I'm
Yeah.
stealing your pencil for
sure,
this.
that's fine.
All right, thank you.
So this is, we give the motions, but some of the articles, obviously, Climate Action's doing the Specialized Energy Code, Laura
Well, we would do
Kelly's.
the motion, however.
We would do the motions. I'm just saying, the ones that aren't, though, covered by those people, be prepared to have something to say.
Bullet points.
Bullet
Bullet
points.
points, right.
You're right.
Okay.
But there's a few that don't have, like the CPA, they will do,
They will talk.
they will
They'll
talk
talk
to them.
on
We
their
can
own,
make the
yeah.
motion, but they will talk.
Are we gonna do
Same
them
with the
all
zoning.
together? CPA?
Yeah, I think that's the
Well,
preferred option.
preferred option, but he might,
Right,
It's
he'll
up to
ask
Scott.
if any want to be pulled out for separate votes, so
Okay.
we'll see. I'll take, well, I was gonna say I'll take 2A. I don't, if someone wants one, I guess we can,
oh, I can do one.
you want to do one? All right, Jerry?
I'd like to do 2B as well.
Yeah, I had you down as 2B. I started assigning them just to, I'll take 2A.
You will?
I will.
You're so brave.
Oh, that's all right. I'm gonna give Jamie, no, I won't give
Yeah,
her.
I
any.
know what you're going to give. I know what I'm, wait, oh, you're taking, Amy, you're 2A, you said?
Yeah, I'll take 2A,
And Jerry, you're,
2B,
2B. I can do 2C. I mean, that's,
okay.
who wants to do the police?
I had Jamie,
I
I
will.
just was spitballing.
Oh, you guys. have the
Spitballing, I
same-
love it.
You'll do it, Jamie?
Yeah, I'll do
2D, okay. I'll do capital improvement. I could do capital budget too. Those kind of go together.
Might as well.
well, Chief Bohan, oh, you said yes, he will be there.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, no worries. He'll do a
Yeah,
full
yeah.
thing if you want him to.
Awesome, yeah, I mean, his presentations are so good.
I know, I agree.
Three-
Lease purchase of ambulance.
I mean, I could
Oh,
do
wait,
it.
who's 3B,
Suzanne?
sorry?
I'll take
3B
3B.
is Amy.
Amy,
Yep.
okay.
Other budget appropriations, any takers?
That's a list, the list of,
Yeah,
I can do that if nobody wants to.
I can give you info on those points. Rich and I can, don't worry.
All right, on
Oh,
4.
wait,
Article 4.
3C is Suzanne.
Suzanne.
Oh, I didn't see that down there.
4 is Jerry.
Okay, sure.
I'll take 5A.
The energy code, all right. Well, they're going to
present, right?
present.
Who wants to do my land?
Who wants to do the land? Haha.
Could do it.
All
Do you
right,
want to do
Suzanne?
B and
You might as well do,
C?
Yeah.
they really tie together.
Wait, B,
Suzanne, 5B and
5B,
5C.
5C.
Jamie, you up for 5D?
yep,
Okay.
Ah, yes,
with bells on.
that's hers.
Pesticides.
I can
Move it?
bring the pesticide forward. And she's going to
Right.
speak, right?
Yes.
Mostly, so.
Fractional, I figured Jamie probably want that.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Okay.
I can do the B through D, 7.
B through D, the
Okay.
the zoning change, yeah, okay.
And then all we have left is CPA.
I would also do that if we're going to do them all together.
Okay.
I don't know if we'll be able to, because it sounds like there might be, I'm surprised, like tonight, we got the 580 is contentious.
Yeah.
And I would think the Schoolhouse Museum might be.
Right.
Okay, well, I mean, that's fine. Either way.
But again, CPA members will be there to answer questions or,
Yeah.
you know.
His wife is the manager of the thrift shop now.
Ah,
Who, oh,
Burrett,
Oh.
Mr. Burrett.
For context.
yeah, the one thing to
Don't
remember
buy a
on
buoy
that,
there,
Who will be there?
buoys, nothing.
Please.
If we don't do it and someone wants to complain that it's not handicapped accessible, which it isn't, we'd have to just close them down. So
Well, like Jerry
they're
made the
being
point,
ridiculous.
that's one exception to
That was-
historic. is
the
ADA.
historic,
Yes.
yeah, the historic preservation, you are allowed, is almost required. You're
Required to bring it to
required
ADA.
To ADA and change, so it doesn't affect the fact that
Especially a
it's not,
place
it
that we
remains
have
historic.
an average volunteer age of 84.
And
Please,
you
please,
think-
Well,
I'm
just
getting
like this
closer.
building.
though.
This is a historic building, but
Bizarre, I couldn't believe.
It's an historic building, but you
Lots
can make
of
those kind of changes.
people could benefit from a ramp.
Yeah.
They could benefit from that, yes.
all right. Great, we blew through that. Minutes. All right.
Both of them?
Need a motion to approve the minutes for March 18th and April 1st.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 4-0. Any other business?
I move we adjourn.
Are
Oh,
we,
maybe not. Whoop, never mind.
do we have business for Monday, the 6th?
Yeah, I saw that on there, and I was like, oh, we don't usually do this to ourselves.
No, we don't.
So the DA would like to come and speak to you about all
No, we
that
don't
day?
need to have him.
Pick it, he can.
Can he come the
We can
20th?
ask a different day.
Yeah, I think it should be a different day. Yeah.
Okay.
really do.
That would be the only reason we would meet.
Yes.
Right
There's something-
now.
There's something else on the board.
If something else comes up that's important, we might have to, but usually we don't do it unless there's a pressing issue that we have.
Yeah, I don't think we,
I would love to hear from the DA on
a different day.
literally any other day.
You really wouldn't.
Try to get him the 20th. Okay, our
Let's stay
microphones
out
are
of
on.
this.
All right, I heard a motion to adjourn from Jerry.
Second.
I move we adjourn. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.